Hello Jason, it's Friday, March 7th, and as I'm sure you can already tell, I have a new setup for my videos again. I wanted to be able to include different types of media in my videos, so I moved my TV attached to my old computer into my office. So we'll see how it goes, but I can already tell that I'm going to need to tweak some stuff in order to make it work properly. For example, there's this screen, which I had hoped to use as an image to illustrate one of my points. What you should be seeing right now is the weather forecast for the next 7 days in Woodstock, Ontario, which was a set of data that I was going to use to suggest that the next 9 days, March break, be a challenge-a-thon. Now, I know that the last time that I introduced a specific goal over a specific period of time, we both failed to meet that goal. But with the significantly nicer weather that you'd actually be able to see if this showed up on my camera, I'm slightly more confident that we can actually get some running in. So with that in mind, I, like you, intend to do some running every day over the next 9 days. But beyond that, I'm glad to report that it's actually getting to the point where the sun is staying out significantly longer, by which I mean noticeably longer. Which is good for me because having a longer period of daylight actually improves my motivation and productivity. So hopefully over the March break I'll be able to convince myself to get some writing done, specifically the short story that I want to write about a ghost and work on my novel. But aside from the weather, I'm hoping that over the next 9 days I'll be able to get a lot more reading done. One of the curious effects of rearranging my rooms is that I no longer have a TV in my bedroom, which means when it's time for me to go to sleep, I no longer just turn on Netflix. So, in order to lull myself to sleep, I've been picking up a book, and this has led to more progress in the reading challenge. Though, I still haven't finished Fly By Night, which I've been reading for like 3 weeks now. This is particularly problematic because over the past couple of months I've actually bought about 30 new books. But then it's also the exact opposite of problematic because now I have several new entries for the In My Pants rule, including 3 titles from the Stephen King collection, which are Misery in My Pants, It in My Pants, and Nightmares and Dreamscapes in My Pants. Then there's Agatha Christie's A Murder is Announced in My Pants. And probably the best example of the In My Pants rule that I bought over the past couple of months, Always Looking Up in My Pants. So hopefully with this new setup I'll be getting to some of those books in the near future, and I'll definitely be cutting down on the number of books that I own that I haven't read. But while I was rearranging my office, I was also going through my bookshelves, and I found several examples of books that I own which are kind of odd or at least interesting. And so I wanted to share these examples with you, starting with the only one that really works with the In My Pants rule, The Guide for Guys in My Pants. The Guide for Guys is a book that I've had for quite a long time. In fact, I've had it since before I went to university. I picked it up from one of those tables that you see around chapters that have like 80% off and above books. The first thing that you'll notice about the book is that it has a compass embedded in the cover, which is extremely useful for when you're lost in the woods with nothing but this book. Which, if I'm being honest, is something that's happened to me about 24 times? But where the book really shines is on the inside, where it gives you practical tips on how to do all kinds of necessary activities. It's got sections on all kinds of things. For example, how to get bigger biceps, how to buy a speedboat, how to carve a pumpkin, how to prepare a romantic dinner. Let's turn to that page. According to the Guide for Guys, there are 4 steps that you want to follow when preparing a romantic dinner. Set the mood, stick to the tried and true, think ahead, and impress without stress. So while on most people's shelves this book would be a bit of an oddity, I found it to be quite a helpful compendium of everyday activities. These next 2 books are much more recent finds of mine. Firstly, The Thinker's Thesaurus. The Thinker's Thesaurus is basically exactly what you would think it was. It works exactly like a regular thesaurus, except that the synonyms it gives you are of the highest order. For example, if you're looking up an alternative for the word eyeglasses, it gives you the following options. Number 1, pince-nez, or number 2, with a short handle like opera glasses, a lorgnette. I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm better than everyone around me already. The next example in my bizarre book collection I just had to pick up because it was only $1, and that's the Ultimate Jack the Ripper Companion. The book basically compiles every known piece of evidence and accepted suspicions about the Jack the Ripper murders. Now, I have no vested interest in the Jack the Ripper murders per se, but like I said, it was only $1, and then I thought, maybe I could become an expert. And even if I don't become an expert on Jack the Ripper, I think it's safe to say that looking at the case files will help with our murder mystery project. And finally, I wanted to show you a book that isn't odd per se, but is rather interesting. And that's Understanding Comics, The Invisible Art. I was assigned this book as a course text for the film genres course that I took in university, where we focused on superhero films. And what's interesting about this book is that the subject matches the form because it's about comic books and it's presented in the style of a comic book. And so while reading through the textbook, you're given examples of what you're trying to learn in the form that you're trying to learn about. I just thought it was really interesting, and what turns out to be more interesting is that I found it to be actually more practically useful after that course in understanding comic books from a literary perspective. But let's change gears and talk about sports, specifically the NHL playoffs. While I can appreciate that you support your hometown team, the Ottawa Senators, I support the Detroit Red Wings. Now, there's no underlying claim of superiority behind my decision to support the Red Wings. It's just a matter of the fact that they won the Stanley Cup the first year that I remember watching it. That being 1997, and they've actually won the Cup 3 times since, in 1998, 2002, and 2008. Beyond that, I have the advantage of cheering for head coach Mike Babcock, who you'll remember as the coach of Team Canada in the Olympics. And it also saves me from the easy choice of cheering for the team which is closest to my physical location, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1967. Otherwise known as the year my mom was born. Though, if we're being perfectly honest, that's a better record than the Ottawa Senators, who haven't won since 1927. But at the end of the day, I find this whole franchise loyalty thing to be kind of bizarre. After all, the players change every year, so all you're cheering for is the corporation behind it. And so with that in mind, go Red Wings! I also wanted to briefly talk about your desire to do a March Madness bracket, which, quite frankly, I would know absolutely nothing about. Like football, basketball is just one of those sports that I can't really get into. I will say that generally, it's a lot more exciting than football, but for some reason I just can't watch a game without getting bored. And so, if you want to do a March Madness bracket, I'm perfectly fine with that, but don't count on me to participate. Or at least if I do participate, don't count on me to make good or educated choices. And so that just leaves chess, but before I get to that, I want to roll up a rim. Blue side is please play again, no surprise there. And the yellow side is also please play again. I'm really not doing well this year. Now, obviously I suspected that you would try to box my king in, allowing you to come in for the kill with your queen. And so I've been making a last-ditch effort to try to get my last really maneuverable piece, my knight that I moved last turn, into a position where I can put pressure on your king. That way, in some minor way, I can control the board for a turn or two. But I actually hadn't counted on you moving your queen this early. I thought you'd move your rook first. But I now see the error of my ways, and that means I only really have one strong move left, and that's to castle my king. So, king from h5 to h7, and rook from h8 to h6. I find it worth mentioning as well as a closing point that we predicted early on in our project that the chess match would end between the middle and end of March, and I think that that prediction is pretty much accurate. So with my own death imminent, make your next move.